Greetings and welcome to another Lessons with Odin. On this episode, I will be showing you how to make these adorable SnakeBird earrings. These were designed using beads sent to me by Chilli Beads. If you guys haven't seen that package opening video, I will leave links down below to it, but I wanted an excuse to play with Chilli Beads because they're really cute. So this is what I came up with using those, and if you don't like the as extravagant ones, you can even reduce it and make these little cute ones as well. So, I will be showing you how to make those. Be sure to check out Chilli Beads because they have some interesting tutorials on their YouTube channel as well, and I'll leave links to their shop if you want to check out their beads. It's pretty spiffy. It's where I get my spikes because we all know how much I love my spikes. They're actually not too heavy and they're kind of flowy and cool, and they kind of remind me of like a kite or something that you would find in a video game. For this project, you will need size 11 seed beads, size 15 seed beads, between 8 and 20 Chilli beads depending on how long you want your pendant. So for each earring you will need 4 to 10, or even longer if you want to make it a really super long tail. You will need 4 to 10 4mm beads. I'm using 4mm powder polished rounds. Again, this also depends on how long you want your tail, but for each earring you can use 2 to 5 beads, or even more, if you want to extend the tail. 16 to 22 3mm beads. Once again, I'm using fire polish. You can also use Bicones with this. You will need 4 mini dagger beads, a set of 2 for each earring, as well as 2 regular-sized daggers, 1 for each earring. You will also need a 12mm Rivoli button. You can also use a 12mm round like I have done in this example. It all depends on the look that you are going for. And of course, your needle and thread. I'm using a heavyweight Nymo with a size 13 beading needle. Let us get started. I'm going to start off with putting on a stop bead at the end of my thread, leaving a fairly good sized tail, probably a 6-inch tail, because we're going to use it at the bail end, but this will help so that the thread doesn't become loose. So I've threaded on a very specific pattern of beads. My stop beads over here, I have one 4mm, one 15 seed bead, one 11 seed bead, one 3mm, one 11, one 15, 2 Chilli beads facing the same direction. If you'll notice, these are both in the same orientation. The dip in the Chilli bead is on the right side. Then another pattern of size 15, 11, 3mm, 11, 15, a 4mm, then a pattern of size 15, 11, 3mm, 11, size 15, 2 Chilli beads facing the opposite direction as the first one. So the dip is now in the left side of the beads, both facing the same direction. And finally, one more pattern of size 15, 11, 3mm, 11, size 15. What I'm going to then do is pass my needle back through all of these beads once more so that we form a loop. And this is what we end up with. You notice it kind of starts to flare out and act like wings. Now I'm going to start my reinforcing step. So what I'm going to do is travel from here to the next 3mm bead here. Like this. Then I'm going to add one size 15, one size 11, one size 15, and pass through the second hole of the first Chilli bead. Then I'm going to add one 3mm bead and pass through the second hole of the next Chilli bead, so that we wedge this 3mm bead in between the 2 chilies. Once again, I'm going to add one size 15, one 11, one size 15, and pass through to the next 3mm bead on our round. From here, I'm just going to jump to the 4mm bead on our round. So I'm passing through a size 11 and a size 15 to get to my 4mm. Now, if you want to make the short tail earrings, you'll want to add one size 15, one size 11, one mini dagger, one regular dagger, one mini dagger, one size 11, and one size 15, then pass back through that 4mm so that we form a picot around it. Then you'll reinforce and continue up on the other side. But for the long tail version, we're going to add one size 15, one size 11, two chili beads facing each other, one size 11 and one size 15, and do the same thing as the daggers. We're just going to pass through that 4mm bead so that the chili beads are hanging down underneath. Now what I'm going to do is pass through the size 15 and size 11. I'm going to pass through one hole of the first chili bead, the first hole. I'm going to add one 3mm bead and pass through the second hole of the next chili bead so that we wedge this open. Then I'm going to pass through the top holes of both chili beads to get to the other side. This is where we end up with. Then I'm going to pass through the second hole of the first chili bead. Then to complete this section, I'm going to pass my needle through the 3mm bead inside. And that is what we end up with. Next, I'm going to add one size 15, one size 11, one 4mm bead, one size 11, one size 15, and then I'm going to pass back through the 3mm bead again, so that we anchor it down below. Next, I'm going to move down the size 15 and size 11 seed bead, and through the 4mm bead. Now from here, we're ready to add another section. So we're going to pretend like this 4mm bead is exactly like this 4mm bead, and we're going to anchor on another set of chili beads underneath it. So add as many of these chili bead sets as you would like to have your tail length. And that is what we end up with. Don't be worried too much about tension or how loose it is. We're going to reinforce everything going back up. But now my thread is currently coming out of a 4mm bead, so I'm adding on my dagger set to finish it off. So once again, it's a size 15, size 11, a mini dagger, normal dagger, mini dagger, size 11, size 15. I'm going to pass back through that fire polish right at the bottom and finish our tail. Now what we want to do is go and reinforce this bit and travel back up, reinforcing as we go. So we'll pass here, 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 all the way back up till we get back to our 4mm bead up here. So when we come up to the top 4mm bead, you will notice that our thread will be coming out in the wrong direction. This is the side we've already worked on, where we have separated the two chili beads here, and we need to be on this side. So what we're going to do instead is work on the center piece here first. So I've got my thread coming out of here. So if you're using a 12mm bead instead of the button, we're going to string on two size 15s, our 12mm, two size 15s. Note, this isn't a 12mm bead. I'm using an 8mm. But bear with me, it's the same exact steps. So, we're adding that. So since we're coming out of the right side of this 4mm bead here, we want to go through the left side of the top 4mm here. So we're going to form a kind of slant. Then I'm going to add two size 15s, pass back through the 12mm, or 8mm in my case. Add on two more size 15 seed beads, and pass through the opposite side of the bottom 4mm bead so we fill all four gaps. And we would end up with something like this. Now to reinforce, we're going to go up through the size 15, up through the pearl, through the next size 15, through the 4mm, down the next set of size 15, down the pearl, and down the next set to reinforce. You'll want to reinforce it one additional time after that, because the 12mm bead is quite heavy inside. We're going to reinforce the next time a bit differently. So we'll go up, through the pearl, over, around, down. Then when we come back down through the pearl, we're going to actually move to the right side, so that we will then travel through from right to left, and our thread will end up here, so that we can continue the other half of our piece. And that's how you do it with a 12mm round. If you're doing it with a button, the steps are a little bit more complicated. Right now I've added on two size 15, two size 11, my button, two size 11, two size 15. Once again, my thread is coming out of the right side of this fire polish bead here, so we want to pass through the left side of the fire polish bead on top. That's what we have, and on the back, that is what it looks like. I'm going to add two size 15 seed beads and pass through two size 11 beads, the button bead, and the next two size 11 seed beads, and pull my thread through so that we form a Y up at the top. Then I'm going to add 2 size 15 seed beads and pass through the remaining side of the bottom fire polish bead so that we cinch it down like that. In order to reinforce it, we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to start off by passing through 2 size 15 seed beads, and then through the first 2 size 11 seed beads. Then I'm going to add 1 size 15, 1 3mm fire polish, 1 size 15, and pass through the next set of size 11 seed beads so that we bridge a gap on top of the button. Then we continue to reinforce. Now when I go from up here, what I want to do is move over to the next 3mm bead so that we can continue our chili beads here. So that is where I want to be. I'm going to add 1 size 15, 1 size 11, 1 size 15, pass through the second hole of the first chili bead, add 1 3mm bead, and pass through the second hole of the second chili bead. I'm going to add 1 size 15, 1 size 11, and 1 size 15, and pass through the next 3mm bead. From this 3mm bead, I'm going to anchor this one down and kind of create a netting to secure the back of the button so it doesn't jiggle around. So like we did at the top and bottom, I'm going to add 2 size 15s and 2 size 11 beads. Then I'm just going to pass through that 3mm bead in the center. Just like that. Then I'm going to add 2 size 11s and 2 size 15s and pass through the 3mm bead towards the top. So we end up with that. Next, I'm going to add 2 size 15 seed beads and pass through 2 size 11 beads, the 3mm bead in the center, and 2 size 11 seed beads, so that we cinch this branch together. I'm going to add 2 more size 15 seed beads and pass through the opposite side of our 3mm bead here. And we will have finished our connection. Next, I'm going to pass all the way down to the next 3mm bead so we can do the other side. So I'll start going through that fire polish bead there, and finally through that 3mm. Now we're just going to repeat the same steps we did on this side to finish the netting on this side. And that is what you end up with on the back side so that the button in the front doesn't wiggle too much. You can go ahead and end your working thread because all that's left to do is to create the bail at the top of the tail. So I've pulled out my stop bead at the top of my piece, and I've ended my working thread, so this is where I am at. I've added on 1 size 11, 1 3mm, 1 size 15, 1 3mm, 1 size 11, and I'm just going to go pass through that 4mm bead again so that we form a loop at the top. Like this, and then all you have to do is reinforce it and end your tail. Then you can attach an ear wire over here so that it rests on top of the size 15 bead. And there you shall have your finished earrings. Let me know what you guys thought of this tutorial. I definitely want to see your creations, so please join us at our Facebook group at Creations from Lessons with Odin and show off your pictures, because this thing leads for some really cool color combinations, and I want to see what you guys come up with. Be sure also to check out Scarab Beads and their YouTube channel, and check out their tutorials, what they have planned, as well as their shop, because they got some nifty things. And I think that will do it from me. Be sure to like up this video and subscribe if you want to see more bullshit from me. Check out my other YouTube shenanigans, all my tutorials and bead hauls, and be sure to check out my classes on Skillshare. All pertinent links will be down below. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and of course, if there's anything I need to be trying out right now, feel free to let me know down below, and I will see you next time.